We've moved on from identifying prepositional phrases to looking at the patterns of sentences. So this screencast is going to help you show what you know. So the first step is always to look for prepositional phrases, and we're going to work one sentence at a time. Hydra was a giant water serpent that lived in the swamps near the city of Lerna. We have this clause underlined because it's a dependent clause. We haven't quite gotten to those yet, but we do know that they have a subject and a verb in them, and that they start with an awubis. So that's kind of how we'll be coding those for right now. So let's start by looking for prepositional phrases. I see in the swamps is one. And then I see another one. Near is a preposition. So the prepositional phrase is near the city. And then a third one of Lerna. Now I'm going to go back to my independent clause, the part that's not underlined. I didn't see a prepositional phrase in there, so I'm going to start with my subject. Who or what is the sentence about? It's about the Hydra. And then I'm going to look for my verb. The Hydra was. I know that's a linking verb. We studied those on our list. The Hydra was. And I'm looking for a predicate adjective or a predicate noun that's going to either describe the Hydra or rename it. The Hydra was a serpent, and that is a noun because I can put the in front of it, the serpent, and then I've got a few modifiers for it. Water describes the serpent, giant describes it, and so does a. In the dependent clause, I know that a dependent clause has a subject and a verb also. And this one's a little bit harder. Sometimes if you're having trouble finding your subject, look for your verb first. So I see the verb lived. I know that's an action. To live, lived. What lived? And in this case, the awubis, the dependent clause, tells me what that subject is. That lived. It refers back to the Hydra. On to the next sentence. She has 9 snake-like heads. In different versions of her stories, the number ranges from 5 to 10,000. So let's look at, we've got a compound sentence. I see a semicolon here, so we're going to have a compound sentence. Let's look at just the first part of the sentence. She has 9 snake-like heads. I don't see any prepositional phrases in there, so I'm going to start by the subject. It is she, again referring back to the Hydra. She, and then my verb is has. I know that's not a linking verb. She has. If I have an action verb, the complement that I'm going to look for is a direct object. She has whom or what. She has heads. And then I've got some modifiers. What kind of heads? Snake-like heads. 9 heads. Looking at my second part of the sentence, in different versions of her stories, the number ranges from 5 to 10,000. Look for prepositional phrases there. I see in, so in different versions. Of is a preposition. I go to the noun of her stories. I see the preposition from 5. And I see one more, to 10,000. Now the beauty of getting rid of our prepositional phrases is that we look for what's left. All that's left in that sentence is the number ranges. The subject is number. And what does the number do? It ranges, and that's an action verb. The next sentence, her center head was immortal. I don't see any prepositional phrases in there, so I'm going to look for my subject. The sentence is about the head, her head. I've got some modifiers there. The center head, her head. The verb is was. I know that's a linking verb because it was on the list of words that we memorized. Her head was. The complement that follows a linking verb is either a predicate adjective or a predicate noun. Immortal. Well, if I'm not sure whether it's an adjective or a noun, I can put the in front of it. The immortal. And here I'm using it as an adjective. It's a describing word. The next sentence, if one of her heads was cut off, 2 new heads would grow back in its place. Looking at this, I see another dependent clause. If is the awubis there. If one of her heads was cut off. It's also at the beginning of the sentence. It's an introductory clause. So let's start there. I see a prepositional phrase, of her heads. And I see off over here, but I know that's not a preposition because, number one, it's got a comma right after it. That's where that clause is going to end, that group of words ends. And it's not off something. There's no noun after it. When we see off or any other preposition used like this, it's just by itself, and it's just being used as an adverb. It's not a preposition anymore. So I look for my subject. My subject is one. And my verb is actually a verb phrase. Was can be a helping verb. Was cut is going to be my action verb because cut is an action, something that you can do. And we already determined that off is an adverb. 2 new heads would grow back in its place. I'm going to look for a prepositional phrase, and I do see one. In its place. And I'm going to go back to my subject. What's the sentence talking about? And it's talking about the heads. And what are the heads doing? They grow, and I see a helping verb there, would grow. And if I want to look for a direct object, I ask myself whom or what. The heads would grow what? Back doesn't really answer that question. So back is telling where they would grow back. So that's an adverb, but it's not a direct object. A whiff of her breath was so venomous that it could destroy living beings. See another sentence here with a dependent clause. The awubis here is that. So I'm going to look to the first part of the sentence, the independent clause. A whiff of her breath was so venomous. I see a prepositional phrase, of. I'm left with a whiff was so venomous. I'm going to look for my subject. What is it about? And I see a. Come on, computer. So my subject is whiff, a whiff. What about the whiff? What is the whiff doing? The whiff was. I know that's a linking verb. I memorized it on my list. Am is, are, was, were. So was is a linking verb. What describes or renames that whiff? It was venomous. That's going to be a predicate adjective. It's describing it. If I'm not sure, I could put the in front of it. The venomous doesn't work. If it said the venom, that would be okay, but it doesn't say that. Looking at the next part, that it could destroy living beings. Looking for a subject, it's talking about it. What is it doing? It's destroying, and it's got a helping verb there, could destroy. I see an action verb. I want to look for the direct object. I ask myself, it could destroy what? It could destroy beings. And I have a modifier here. What kind of beings? Living beings. And then the last sentence, she could really give you a headache. My sentence is about she. What did she do? She could give, and I have a helping verb, could, goes with give, could give. Could give, I look for my direct object, could give what? Could give a headache. Could give a headache to whom or for whom. This is the first time that we're going to look for an indirect object because we see some space between give and headache. Give a headache to whom or for what? Could give a headache to you. So there's our first indirect object.